At various times in history, the ocean has been home to monsters that terrified entire regions, from the enormous and dreadful mosasaur to the bloodthirsty great white shark and the extremely poisonous octopus. Which one is the most fearsome? Let's find out. In this episode, you'll learn about the most terrifying and dangerous creatures in the ocean throughout history. Before we dive into the main part of this episode, let's take a look at some incredible photos that are hard to believe. The first shows a small boat with a fisherman and some kind of anomalous underwater creature swimming by. Who was it? Why is it so huge? And what's become of it today? Unfortunately, no one's been able to give a definitive answer to these questions. So if you have any theories, I'm waiting for them in the comments. Next, let us move on to a sea monster that was pulled from the water. Although it was not as large as the previous one, it was no less terrifying and frightening. This creature lacked eyeballs, and its jaw reminded me of the mouth of the alien from the movie. Just as I was about to say that this was the scariest mouth I'd ever seen, another one appeared. There were many debates online about this frame. Some said it was a pure fake, while others claimed it was unique and secret material leaked by dishonest underwater service employees. As you understand, the truth has never been revealed. However, as much as I want to believe in various amazing creatures, this, in my opinion, crossed all boundaries of reality. Looking at our world from a different, more ancient perspective, even such large and fantastic creatures could have had a right to life. A vivid example of this is the extinct predators like the dinosaurs. These guys swam underwater about 110 to 150 million years ago, and were considered one of the few who were almost exclusively adapted for hunting large prey. This prehistoric reptile grew up to 16 feet long, and its main weapon was an incredible mouth filled with sharp teeth. It was clear to everyone, crossing a Dacosaurus meant saying goodbye to life. The only ones it could spare were small creatures, probably considered it wrong to bully the weak. For this reason, the monster regularly dined on other giants from the top of the food pyramid, like plesiosaurs and sharks. The hunting tactic of this beast was simple but effective. First, it would chase its prey, and then arrange a deadly carousel, grabbing with its teeth and spinning around at an unimaginable speed. No one could do anything against the Dacosaurus, and if not for Mother Nature, they would likely have become the undisputed and eternal winners of any underwater battles. However, these reptiles faced the issue of reproduction, which, as it turned out, they were not well prepared for. Like most other reptiles, our guests laid eggs, and since they lived underwater, it was quite difficult. Either they came ashore, where they felt, to put it mildly, uncomfortable, or they did everything underwater, but then the eggs washed away and the young drowned. How exactly Dacosaurs reproduced is still unknown to specialists, but no one doubts that their method was very awkward. Stephacanthus. Next, we have another underwater monster from the past, commonly referred to as the ironing board fish. Comments on this nickname are unnecessary. Stephacanthus indeed had a very strange dorsal fin, which was only present in males. Females had a classic fin like our modern sharks. It's worth noting that Stephacanthus was not an ancient shark but a genus of extinct cartilaginous fish that closely resembled the predators we know. However, for simplicity, let's still call this fish a shark. I think no one will mind. So yes, the males of this shark had a very strange fin, which, of course, they used as intended. Scientists have theories about its use, but proving even a part of any theory has been unsuccessful. The oversized dorsal fin seriously hampered the shark's swimming abilities, and the horny skin spikes on top were utterly useless. Some scientists believe that the only reasonable use for such a fin was for attachment. Proponents of this hypothesis think that with the help of dorsal spines, the shark attached itself to a larger fish and traveled the ocean for fun, essentially being a parasite. Supporters of the second theory didn't imagine much and suggested that this fin was needed by males to attract females. And the third, most creative theory involved battles using these growths. But how such a battle looked and what its purpose was remains unexplained. If you have your theories about this, I'm waiting for them under the video. Let's move on and look at Camerocharis. In the darkest era, When there were no sharks with strange fins or dinosaurs, the giant squid ruled the world's oceans. This was, to understand, over 445 million years ago. It's amazing that any traces of such an ancient creature have survived at all, right? I'd probably need many years to recover from this shocking discovery, but scientists were much more determined. They pulled themselves together and began analyzing the remains. Several studies showed that this was a squid that grew up to 33 feet or more. This mollusk was likely one of the largest animals of the Paleozoic era. Judging by its enormous size, it was considered the top predator dwelling in the deep sea and likely fed on eurypterids and small cephalopods. Of course, food did not turn into puree by itself. Camrocaris had to work for it. This ancient monster would lie on the seabed and wait for an inattentive prey to enter its range. As soon as it happened, it would immediately spring into action and attack. The only unresolved nuance is how Camrocaris noticed its opponent. No one's ever found its eye, leading to the belief that this giant had poor vision or none at all. But how did it navigate space then? Unfortunately, experts have no answers. Mosasaurs. These ancient monsters may already be familiar to some of you. At least their name is more commonly heard. Mosasaurs were a large group of Upper Cretaceous marine reptiles, predators of medium to large sizes. Due to their specialization, they were very different from modern lizards. For example, in the structure of internal organs, it resembled that of cetaceans. Also, mosasaurs were warm-blooded creatures and had a high metabolism. By the way, do you know what else united them with cetaceans? Correct, fantastic dimensions. If we believe the results of recent studies, our guest must have grown over 50 feet long. The sea tyrant was absolutely unshakable. It could grab its prey with its teeth and kill it right there. The bite force was so great that it easily broke bones and tore soft tissues. Although it's not certain, some especially strong creatures might break free from the mosasaur's grip, but with a high likelihood they'll still die within minutes from blood loss. It's said that even feathered creatures found no peace from these beasts. Countless pterosaurs became regular meals for this monster. As soon as the flying giants descended even slightly, mosasaurs immediately soared above the water surface and swallowed them alive. Excellent fin structure, combined with a powerful tail and proper body proportions, allowed these creatures to develop decent speed. And the accelerated metabolism I mentioned earlier drove them to find more and more prey daily. Fortunately, time does not stand still, and today it's not necessary to grow to colossal sizes to dominate the underwater environment. Modern creatures, which I'll tell you about next, prove this by their own example. The first of these is the stonefish, or simply the reef stonefish. An inconspicuous and relatively small fish would never arouse your suspicions if you saw it for the first time in your life. But therein lies the main nuance. Such a visit would be the first, quick, and simultaneously the last, because the stonefish is the most poisonous fish in the world. On average, it grows to a mere 12 inches long, so theoretically it could fit in the mouth of almost any other predatory fish. Yes, even a great white shark, which, by the way, I'll tell you about later. If you're already worried and afraid to go to the sea, keep in mind that stonefish are mainly found in the southern tropics and shallow waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. There are only 3 beaches where tourists might accidentally encounter it, all in Egypt. This fish is extremely sluggish. Typically, it rests between rocks or buries itself in mud or sand. Only the top of its head and back stick out from the ground. But step on this inconspicuous stone accidentally, and the pain will immediately let you know. The venom of this creation causes severe pain with potential shock, paralysis, and tissue necrosis, depending on the depth of penetration. At the slightest irritation, the stonefish raises the spines of its dorsal fin and punctures everything in its path. Even sturdy footwear won't save a tourist. If a spine hits a major blood vessel, death can occur within a few hours. Only timely help can save the victim. Even then, it often happens that the victim continues to suffer for months after being treated. Portuguese man-o-war. No, I don't mean a pirate ship sailing on the water. The Portuguese man-o-war is an ordinary and barely noticeable colony of polyploid and medusoid individuals. Despite the many different organisms in this man-o-war, they function as one entity. Instead of a deck, our guest has a 12-inch gas-filled bladder. Thanks to this, these creatures stay afloat. As for weapons, instead of cannons and arrows, they have long tentacles reaching up to 164 feet. Unfortunately, these giant tentacles are hidden underwater, making it very difficult to assess the threat from this invertebrate. The only indicator, which according to Mother Nature should be enough, is its bright neon coloration. If you think such a cute and tiny creature cannot cause harm, know that it's not true. The tentacles of these creatures carry a massive number of stinging cells whose venom is dangerous to humans. The poison of the Portuguese man-o-war is similar to cobra venom in composition. Only sea turtles and nudibranch mollusks and snails can handle this monster, likely due to their resistance to the venom or other secret traits. And since we're talking about toxic sea creatures, why not recall the blue-ringed octopus? These mollusks inhabit the coastal waters of the Pacific Ocean from Japan to Australia. And despite their tiny, harmless appearance, they pose an unimaginable danger. It's believed that blue-ringed octopuses have an extremely aggressive nature and one of the most severe toxins in the world. Fortunately, recognizing these monsters is simple. Just look at their body and find the characteristic blue or black rings. When the octopus is disturbed, irritated, or frightened, brown patches appear on its skin, and the blue rings become brighter and shimmer. There are 50 to 80 rings on its small body. The diet of this monster consists mainly of crabs, shrimp, and hermit crabs, and this despite the fact that our guest is quite small. The body length is no more than 2 inches, the tentacles up to 4 inches, and the total weight is about 0.2 pounds at best. The maximum depth to which these predators dive is 250 feet. And oh, how we would like them to live mostly there, but unfortunately luck is not on our side because blue-ringed octopuses prefer shallow water. As for their attack mechanism, it's very similar to that of spiders. Attacking their prey, they pierce the shell with their beak and inject poisonous saliva, paralyzing the victim. After some time, they suck out the softened flesh, leaving an empty shell and enjoy themselves. It might seem that since the blue-ringed octopus is so small, it doesn't pose much of a threat to humans. However, luck again turns away from us. The strength of the venom of this tiny creature is enough to kill a person. Unfortunately, there's still no antidote for the venom of the blue-ringed octopus, and the toxin takes effect just 15 minutes after injection. In short, the chances of survival are almost nil. Now let's talk about the great white shark, the very toothed predator that even schoolchildren know. These fish quickly gained popularity among people due to a number of movies and stories. Everyone thinks that great white sharks are the main and most popular predators in the water that cannot be stopped, that they're bloodthirsty and completely insane fish that must be fought against. Yes, perhaps at some point in time this was true, but that period is long past. In fact, great white sharks are on the verge of extinction precisely because of excessive hatred from humans. They're still just as strong, possessing one of the most powerful bites on the planet, swimming fast, navigating well in space, and showing a high level of socialization, but they can't do anything against the factor of hunting and harpoons. Currently, according to the latest information, about 3,500 great white sharks are swimming in the ocean, which is catastrophically low. People, of course, are trying in every possible way to make amends and restore the population, but this is clearly not a quick process. No matter how you look at it, the black market continues to operate, and many want to add the tooth of this giant predator to their collection. The waters of the ocean are full of mysteries and secrets. Often they wash something ashore that can surprise and frighten people. Next, I'll tell you about the largest creatures washed ashore. Nessie. Yes, it's all about that unfortunate inhabitant of Loch Ness. The inhabitant that's fed up with everyone. The inhabitant that no one leaves alone, even if it exists. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. After all, some guy posted this photo on social media. Of course, both he and many viewers first thought of the Loch Ness Monster because it happened near the lake, and the size of the creature is very strange. Even a professor joined the discussion and expressed the opinion that it's a representative of a cetacean species. But you must agree, believing in some boring whale is not the best idea. It's much more fun to believe that this is the skeleton of the long-awaited Loch Ness Monster. Wouldn't you agree? Globster. For those who don't know, this is a strange organic mass that washes up on the shores of the oceans. I say this because it was found off the coast of San Antonio in the Philippines. A 20-foot-long, foul-smelling monster covered with something resembling hair was found by locals. Its smell was incredibly disgusting, even for the specialists who came to take samples to determine the species of the creature. Just imagine what it's like for the workers to sort through this slimy carcass to determine the species. That's the moment to reflect on your job and say how much you love it. Let's start with this photo, which the author of the photo says shows a whale. It seems that people are actually watching a part of the cliff falling into the water, but the author claims that it's a whale. However, it's unclear what's wrong with its color in such a case, but there is no doubt about the existence of whales of similar size. After all, in 2012, people managed to capture this whale on camera. It may be even bigger than the giant by the cliff. In September of that year, tourists were lucky enough to see and film a whale that swam into the coastal waters of Australia. It was not possible to measure the giant on the spot, but presumably it was at least 100 feet long. And its mass, according to scientists, exceeded 200 tons. No one has ever managed to capture such large whales on camera before or since, so the whale was a record-breaking and unique in every sense. And in general, on that day, all the stars seemed to align for tourists and locals, because blue whales of such a size do not often swim to the place where the giant was found. And this year, people managed to capture a whale that was not as large, but no less interesting. Off the coast of Valencia in Spain, they came across this whale. What's wrong with it, you might ask? And indeed, it swims in a strange way, like it doesn't want to move its hind fin or something. But in fact, people filmed a rare and very large whale having scoliosis. Yes, it's not just humans that have scoliosis. It was a fin whale, and it was about 56 feet long. At first, people didn't even realize what was wrong with the whale. They thought that it got tangled in fishing net and lost in space, so it started twisting to get out. But scientists quickly explained everything to them. The fin whale eventually managed to swim away from the shoreline, but it was not easy for it. Biologists believe that whales having scoliosis experience severe pain and are unable to move their tails normally. Despite this, the fin whale with scoliosis was able to travel thousands of miles to migrate. As for the scoliosis, the giant could have gotten the injury by colliding with a large ship. This has already happened to other whales, such as humpback whales. Underwater encounter. Usually people encounter and film large whales somewhere on or near the surface of the water or close to the shore. But what about this one? These divers were lucky enough to come across a very large whale right under the water. The giant was swimming calmly, showing off for the camera, and then apparently called out to its congener. You can see two whales in the footage. The huge and majestic creatures did not think to attack divers or interfere with their diving, because whales, as we know, are kind animals. And also, contrary to all the legends, whales cannot swallow a human. They have a very narrow throat. Nevertheless, a whale may accidentally swallow a person into its mouth along with water while eating krill, so it's better not to swim close to a whale that's eating. Whales are the main giants of the underwater world, but there are other huge creatures to be seen in the oceans, seas, and rivers. Why not take a look at them too? Keep watching to see a real sea serpent, creepy squids that'll make you stay awake at night, a jellyfish the size of a man, and more. King of herrings. Not every fish will be dubbed a king, but in the case of the king of herrings, everything's deserved. It's also known as the giant oarfish, and at the moment it is the longest bony fish in the world. Its average length is 10 feet, but lucky people have found kings of herrings that were 30 to 35 feet long. No wonder it's believed that these fish became the prototypes of the mythical sea serpents. Usually these creatures swim at great depths, so it's not so easy to encounter them and capture them on camera. But in this case, two giant oarfish rose to the surface at once to show off for people. It was a 1 in a million moment. It happens very rarely. I don't know who was luckier, them or these divers. They encountered a giant oarfish right in the sea off the coast of Taiwan. They came across one of the biggest giant oarfish people have ever seen. The giant was also very tough with holes on its body. Scientists believe that this is the result of the work of a cookie cutter shark, which is known for biting whole pieces of meat off large fish. Although the fact of encountering the giant oarfish can be called successful, the residents of Taiwan are not happy about it. They consider the appearance of this fish as a bad omen. In their opinion, it could be a sign of an imminent earthquake. It's one thing to come across a fish, though a long one, but still a fish. But what is it?
Uh-oh.
The video is old and has poor quality, but we can still get a glimpse of this something. It's hard to even describe. It lives at great depths. It has something like very long tentacles, and its head is oddly shaped. Or here's another. This is a more recent case that happened this year. Scientists came across the same creature in the Gulf of Mexico. It looks very creepy. What is it? An unknown species or some kind of alien? It's neither. In fact, it's Magna Pina. And strangely enough, it's not a jellyfish, as you might think, but a squid. A big fin squid, to be more precise. These cephalopods live at great depths and are astonishingly large. The length of their body, along with the tentacles, which are more correctly called hands, reach 40 feet. With the help of these creepy and thin hands, the squid catches bottom prey. Although Magna Pina is the most unusual squid, it's still not the only deep-sea squid. There are also giant squid. If the giant oarfish I showed you are considered prototypes of sea serpents, these cephalopods are prototypes of the kraken. Well, or their relatives, if krakens are real after all. This video is interesting, not only because here a very large giant squid was filmed from such a close distance, but also because usually these animals do not rise to the surface and prefer to live at a depth of several hundred feet and deeper. And in this video, the giant squid is already in its usual habitat. This is, by the way, one of the first videos which shows the giant squid. Due to the fact that these giants live at a big depth and rarely delight people with their visits to the surface, scientists don't know as much about them as they would like to. Besides, just 150 years ago, no one could believe that such animals really exist. So what are we even talking about? Jellyfish. But if I lived in the late 19th century, I personally would have a harder time believing not in a giant squid, but in a jellyfish the size of a human. See for yourself. Divers came across one of these a few years ago. Even in this state, the jellyfish is huge, but if it were to straighten its tentacles, it could be about 10 times the size of the diver. Here, by the way, is another encounter with such a giant jellyfish. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't go near one of these in the ocean if I were a diver. But actually, this jellyfish is not as dangerous as you might think. It can sting, but it's not fatal. At most, there will be a rash or allergies. By the way, the jellyfish itself is called the lion's mane jellyfish, and in terms of length, it's one of the longest creatures on the planet. The length of the lion's mane jellyfish, along with its tentacles, can reach 120 feet. Catfish. Catfish are one of the main giants of rivers and oceans, but I think that not many people realize how big these animals really are. Check out this catfish the diver stumbled upon. From a distance, it looked more like some huge rock under the reef. In the murky water, it'd be difficult to see a catfish in it. But it's not so scary. Catfish are predators, but they rarely attack humans. And here we see a catfish that's been caught. An Italian man caught one of the largest catfish in the Po River in the north of the country. How you like the catch? It's not bad if you ask me. But the catch of these fishermen is much more unusual and interesting. They managed to catch not just a huge catfish, but an albino catfish. A white catfish is a rarity and a very important trophy for fishermen. But these guys didn't take the fish for themselves. After a little photo shoot, they returned the catfish to its native habitat. That's about it. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel.